Welcome to HRT Part 2, and this stands for My Health Reset Technique. Health was the very reason I started my coaching and mentoring business back in 2018. It was having lost my health physically, mentally, and emotionally that made me really dive deep into holistic health and how I could support my health now, my enjoyment, my quality of life now, and the longevity piece of it, because I've been doing so much research into the causes of Alzheimer's, something that my mum was diagnosed with in her 60s far too early and died in her 70s far, far too early. And at the time, a lot of that research was around sleep and diet. And my mum had terrible sleep and had a terrible diet, and she didn't do very much exercise. So I wanted to know more about what I could do to prolong the potentiality of me getting Alzheimer's. If it's a genetic thing, then I had it. I've also subsequently learned that it was coupled with lowering of estrogen. But this is why I started, to help women and men take control and really empower themselves with what they could do, take responsibility of their health, their life, their well-being, their quality of life. This, to me, is something I am still so incredibly passionate about, and one of the reasons why I'm here talking to you about this today, and why it plays such a huge factor. This section comes from the workshops that I did when I started talking about perimenopause and menopause, and how I educated women on what they could do to support themselves as they approach the perimenopausal stage, and during the perimenopausal stage, and post, and as they moved into the menopause, what they could do for themselves. So if you are a woman with hormones, everything is relevant for you in this section, whether you are in perimenopause or not. The way that you are going to live your life today, the way that you look after this physical body, most physically, mentally, and emotionally, is the way that you're going to experience your current reality, how much your quality of life is right now, but also the quality of your life in your future, regardless of whether you're in perimenopause or menopause or not. The risks of coronary heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, your bone health, breast cancers can be greatly reduced if you look after your whole health, your holistic health now, not just in the perimenopause. And whether you start HRT in terms of hormone replacement treatment or not, I believe that this should run concurrently with it. The risks shared in that report that I talked about in HRT1, it was the unhealthy, overweight women who also experienced the outcomes of coronary heart disease, of strokes as well. So don't do just one, do both if you're going to go on hormone replacement treatment. So after that little lecture and my little impassioned speech, I believe that all of our health is all connected. The holistic health, this mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, is all really, really connected. And what we do and the way that we live our life, this lifestyle and the way we live, all interlinks. The food we eat not only changes our physical well-being, our shape, the health of our organs, our skin, everything, but it also contributes to how we think, how we deal with stress and overwhelm and anxiety. The clarity of our thought is also connected to what we eat, how we feel about ourselves, but also how we feel about ourselves, how we feel, our moods, how much energy we have, how much vitality we have, and as I said, how we cope with kind of like that stress and stressful situations. The way we move our bodies, how much we move, is also going to impact our physical health, our heart health, our bones, our lungs, our organs, but it also supports our mental health, the quality of our thoughts, the clarity of our thoughts, and it also impacts the quality of our sleep, just like food. I think I forgot about that. Our nutrition also impacts our quality of sleep. The way we sleep, the way we rest also is going to influence what we eat. I know that if I've had a bad night's sleep, I'm more likely to reach for like the sugary, the caffeine, and the alcohol. The way we sleep and rest is also going to impact how we move. I know when I wasn't getting very much sleep, the last thing I wanted to do was, do some form of really physical, high intensity exercise. I also know that when my sleep was poor, I knew that my emotions were higher. I was much more emotional. and I felt much more stressed and overwhelmed and anxious. It's all interlinked. The way that we manage our mental health, the strength, the way that we see our thoughts, the way we act on our thoughts is also going to dictate what we eat, how we move, how we sleep. So it's all kind of like holistic. It is all one part of the same thing. And I really want to arm you today with that knowledge and what you can do and how you can move forward. Really simply, because I know, like you, I'm busy. There is a lot going on in my life, multiple businesses, work, purpose, love, enjoyment, relationships, my children, so much going on, conversations with my friends, looking after my social, my health, all of this. There is so much to go on, but this is the one thing that we can do for ourselves to make sure that we enjoy the rest of it and that we're here for the long term as well. So the biggest thing that I took away from all of my coaching qualifications in all of my holistic health is that nutrition plays the biggest part of our holistic health, physically, mentally, emotionally. Now, I told you all are connected, but the nutrition piece, what we eat, is the number one thing that we can focus on to improve our well-being. If there's one thing that you can do, start with your nutrition. It's not about training for a marathon or doing anything like that. The biggest thing that you can do to support yourself is to start with your health. It has the biggest impact. The biggest improvements you see will come from your own control. What you put on your plate, what you put in your glass, what you have in your fridge, what you have in your cupboards, and what you put in your mouth. 80% of your health comes from what you eat. 80%. So you can take responsibility of that yourself. Now, over the course of the last 5 years, I've heard every single excuse under the sun. I don't have time to cook or eat well. My partner does the cooking, so I can't dictate it. My work includes a lot of eating out. We're very, very sociable. I'm always eating out. I'm too busy to take lunch, to do anything quickly. Do you know what? It's not worth it. It's going to take too long and it's not going to make any kind of difference. Do you know what? I'm too bothered. I'm fine with the way I look. I am fine. I'm totally fine. I can't be bothered. And I'm just too old to care or to change. I've had all of them. But I still think it's so important. I strongly believe it's so important, especially if you've got so many reasons to live and to stay alive. This is what you can do. Very, very simply, there's a simple formula. Make your reasons bigger than your excuses. Make your why. If you've read Simon Sinek's book, if you've seen his TED Talk, or if you haven't, please go watch it. Make your why. Make your vision bigger than any reason or any excuse not to, or any fear that you have that this isn't going to work. I want to bring this into the context of this Life Lab. Why is it important for you to make these changes to your health? Whether it's to do with the perimenopause or not. Why is it important for you to make the changes right now? Maybe you're watching this, nothing to do with perimenopause. Maybe I've given you this video to say, well, do you know what? Just go and watch this on health. What are your symptoms in perimenopause? How are they impacting your life right now? What good do you want to believe that is going to come out of making these changes for you, for the people you live with, your family, your partners? What about in your work? How is that going to impact them? What's the ripple effect? Perhaps you're going to be less moody. Maybe you're going to have better clarity of thought. Maybe you're going to be more productive. Maybe you're going to be more tolerant. All of these things. What about your longer term vision? What do you see from making these changes today? What is going to be the impact in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? How do you want to see yourself in the future, having made some of these changes we're going to talk about today? Take some time really to journal on that, to think about that. It's so important. Do the mind work before you make any changes. And this was often the biggest one for me. What is going to happen if you don't do anything differently? What is the worst case scenario? If you keep going this way, where are you going to head? What is the worst case scenario? My worst case scenario is if I don't do anything, I'm going to end up like my mum with Alzheimer's. I'm not going to see my kids grow old. I'm not going to see my grandchildren. I'm not going to have a clue. It's going to be awful. That simply made it so easy for me. And that's what I want for you. Find your reasons why this is important. Give yourself a kick up the backside and do these. Even if you just do 1 or 2 things, those 1 or 2 things can change the course and the trajectory of your health radically over time. You must have seen the slight edge curve. Just make small changes, and over time they have a massive difference. In answering those questions I've just asked you, I found stronger reasons to make the changes than I did give in to my excuses. As I said, my lifestyle choices gave me a stronger chance of not getting Alzheimer's, not being like my mum, missing out on being a granny. For me these days, these choices, lifestyle choices around what I eat, how I move, how I sleep, how I rest, is more about longevity than it is anything to do with aesthetics. How you live in your 30s and 40s is going to dictate how you experience your 50s, your 60s, your 70s and beyond. It's about feeling good now and feeling good in the future. How you experience life now, the quality of your life now and the quality of your life later. I look at my dad, you know, he's just approaching 90 and he's going around the world. He's in great health because he's always done these things that I talk about. He was always the one who inspired me with this. So take some time, press pause, go and journal out in your workbook. There's spaces in there, and really connect to this for you, where you are right now. Why does it matter to you? Not your neighbor, not your best friend, not your colleagues. Why you right now? And what is the impact that you hope to make? Just going to take a moment. Okay. Now, what I'm about to share with you, I'm hoping is not going to come as a complete surprise. You are educated, you are smart, you will have heard this, you've probably done some work. You may be doing some of these things already, but maybe not all the time. So whatever and wherever you are, this is going to be a good reminder. And you might learn something new and you might not, but it's about just re-educating yourself, re-solidifying yourself, really anchoring yourself into this health piece, especially when it comes to managing those fluctuations in your hormones in the perimenopause. And perhaps when you listen, when I start talking, congratulate yourself on all of the things that you are doing. Give yourself a mini high five. Yep, high five to you. Make notes on what you feel you could do better at. And at the end, I would love to invite you to go have a look and just review all of your notes and maybe pick one or two things that feel possible for you to do right now that you can commit to. And you can come back to this list over and over again, nail doing that one change, and then come back. When that's become a habit, come back and add something else. It's like adding little bits of salt all the time. You don't throw it all in together. You just do one thing and let that enhance the flavor of your life. Then add a little bit more and let it enhance your life. Keep adding. I love laying. I love this idea of layering of the integrations, and congratulating yourself is always a really nice thing to do. Sorry, I've got a hair in my eye. Now, for those of you who may be in a position where I was, where the quality of your life, because of the perimenopause or the menopausal symptoms, you're looking at your sheet of loads of perimenopausal symptoms, and you're waiting to go and see the GP, because this is what happened to me. This was on the Friday. I had to wait till the Monday to go and see the GP. I put myself through a hard reset. So this is a health reset technique. I did it as a hard reset technique for 5 days, but it can be just a health reset. I love to do this. I love to do a hard reset every now and again, just a few days, 3, 4, 5 days of just real, intentional, focused change and focused intention. It's so good for the whole body. It makes me feel so good. If I make that promise and that commitment to myself, I'm like, yes, I can do this. I've done this. I feel great afterwards, physically, mentally, and emotionally. After I'd done it for about 5 days, my boys came home and I relaxed a little bit, but it kick-started me back into some really good habits that have continued. You know, this all happened for me at the end of the summer when maybe I'd just gone off track a little bit. So it was really good for me to reset this. So we're going to start in terms of nutrition. As I've said already, 80% of your holistic health is going to be coming from how you nourish your physical body. Now, if you want to do a hard reset, I went mainly plant-based. I started to introduce fish, 1 meal a day after day 2. I had lots and lots of water. I drank herbal tea instead of coffee. I had no alcohol, literally cut alcohol out, no refined sugar, no processed foods, no dairy, no gluten. Mainly went plant-based. I had 1 coffee, but it was a small one with a little bit of oat milk, because I love coffee, and I savoured it and I kept it to in the morning. So that is what I did on my hard reset. 80% of food. I didn't have the energy to do loads of exercise. I didn't have the energy to do anything else, but I knew if I could just sort my food out and be consistent and be committed, I knew it was going to make a massive, massive difference. Now, I cut these out because I know that some of these food groups can be real hormone disruptors. So, for example, gluten, gluten can be really disruptive with your digestion. And for some people, this can cause a real inflammation, and then that can cause issues with your hormones, or it's going to cause issues with your sleep, which can cause, in turn, kind of like cause those issues with stress, which then cause issues with your hormones. So it's all interlinked. So I just cut out gluten. I also cut out dairy because I know that my body isn't particularly great with dairy over a long period of time. When I first ran these workshops, they were talking very much about hormones in milk and antibiotics in milk that can be really disruptive. I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked into that lately to see if that's true or not, but I just chose to cut out dairy because it really disrupts my digestion. Therefore, it's going to disrupt my sleep and then my stress, etc. But if hormones are still in milk, if there are antibiotics in milk, it might be just an American thing. I got this from, I think it was Dr. Mark Hyman, and I know he's an American doctor. It can be a huge hormone disruptor. But as I said, this was mainly for me about disrupting my digestions. Sugar and alcohol. There's a lot of sugar in alcohol, so I'm putting them two together. Now, this can really impact your insulin production, and therefore you can, create differing levels of your estrogen. So again, causing a hormonal imbalance. Plus, sugar and alcohol can massively disrupt your sleep patterns. Matthew Walker talks a lot about the circadian rhythms, so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But alcohol and sugar can really impact that. And then that sleep disruption can also disrupt your hormones. Right. So any disruptive digestion, any one of those above, is going to disrupt your efficiency to absorb the nutrients in your food, which is then going to affect your mental clarity, your motivation, your energy, and all of these things that can also come hand in hand with perimenopausal symptoms. And they can all contribute to feeling good, feeling better, or feeling worse. And what we want to try and do is feel good, feel better. While our hormones are going out of balance, we know that we can balance this part. This is within our control, and we can start to help ourselves. So I know that there's a real big excuse for women today that they are too busy to focus on food. It's too hard. And I can be like that as well. When you're running around with all the children and you're working, you've got multiple jobs and things to do and places to go and all of these things, the last thing you want to do is think about food. I know I as much as I love cooking and eating, sometimes food is like, oh, why? So I like to keep food really, really simple. I want to give you some really, really clear guidance just to really think about, just stick to a few key principles when it comes to the health reset. So I did a hard reset. This is when we go to just like this health reset, push that button and start to feel good. Some key things. I never really like to say cut anything out, because I think if you start to cut things out, it makes you want it more. But what you can do is you can increase some things, crowd out some of the things that we want to have less in our diet. By increasing some things, it automatically means other things are decreased. So think more whole foods. What I mean by a whole food is like a whole chicken or a whole fish, something that's whole in itself. A whole apple, whole. Fresh foods, whole foods, more than you're having processed foods. So increase your whole foods, increase your fresh foods in their natural state, in their original state, is what I was trying to say when it came to whole foods, in its original state. Fewer, less processed food, have more plant foods rather than food from a plant. I used to love saying that, more plants than food from a plant. So you want to have increase these and then decrease the processed foods, because processed foods have got more sugar, more salt, etc., fat, etc., which aren't good for us. So when I come to thinking about my plate, this is very simple again, and you may have heard this, but it's always a good reminder. Rules of thumbs: use your hands when you're looking at the size, because my husband is 6'5" and I'm 5'7.5". We need different levels of food, and sometimes if I try and match what he's having, I can put on a few pounds or two. So you want to do it based on your hand, and you want to have a palm-sized amount of protein, the size of your palm and the thickness of your hand. So lean meat, fish or tofu or nuts, whatever kind of diet you're on, lean meat. Doesn't matter whether it's white meat or dark meat. To me, it's about variety. So eat them all. You want to have a fist. So a fist size of good carbs. So we're thinking about brown rice, sweet potato, quinoa, you know, also new potatoes. I think potatoes get a bad press, but they only become bad when you put them in a deep fat fryer. So lovely good carbs, 2 handfuls of lovely vegetables like this. So probably half your plate is going to be veggies. Eat the rainbow. You've heard that expression, eat the rainbow. And then you want to have a thumb of good fats. So whether that's avocado, nuts, olive oil, really, really good for you. I used to work in my first business with a wonderful nutritionist who came on board to help me with this. She was called Tiff. Some of you may remember her if you've been following me for a while, but she always used to talk about you need all your macronutrients, proteins to grow, carbs to go, and fats for your mojo. So just keep it really simple, keep a balanced diet, just in the way I've explained. You do not have to cook cordon bleu food every night. You do not have to be Instagrammable. I love to just keep it simple, you know, a simple steak or a simple piece of meat or a simple piece of fish, simple piece of chicken, add some lovely quinoa with loads of lovely herbs, or, you know, some lentils, add them with herbs, and then just add salad and veggies, drizzle with a little bit of olive oil. Perfect. You know, you can add like squeezes of lime or lemon or salt, just a little bit of pink Himalayan sea salt, just to lift the flavors. You don't have to go wild with these sauces because there's often a lot of fats in there that aren't so great for you. So keep it simple, keep it tasty, keep it delicious. Lovely stews in the winter you can do with really tomato based or coconut milk based. I've got loads of recipes, and I've put in your workbook some of my favorite chefs who will really, really help you in their recipe books. They are wonderful. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm always talking about what I'm eating. So you'll be able to see on there and follow along. So food, keep it simple. Use your hands. Hydration. You know, this is so important for your brain fog. You know, you don't always need coffee. You want to start with a glass of water every single morning. Start with a pint of water. I keep one of these bottles by my bed so the flies don't get in them. And in the winter it's cold, and in the summer in the winter when it's cold, I have warm water in here. So I've boiled the kettle and I've put it in here. And by the time I wake up in the morning, it's that perfect warm temperature. And I just neck that down. And in the summer, it's cold. And that just really lovely, refreshes you. It's so good for your brain. You know, half the time we think we're hungry or we're tired, and it's actually because we're dehydrated. So first thing to do in the morning, drink a big glass of water. And again, this is not necessarily about cutting anything out unless you're doing a hard reset. This is about saying, have more water, have more herbal teas, less fizzy drinks, less alcohol, less caffeine. Not necessarily no, but just less. What I would say in terms of caffeine, especially when it comes to perimenopause, try and keep your 1 coffee to the morning, 1 or 2 coffees to the morning. Make it a beautiful coffee, really savor it, have it in the morning, really enjoy it. I love to have mine sat outside, just out there in the sunshine, and it's lovely, and I savor it, and then that's it. Caffeine has a really strong, long life, and it can, even if you don't think it's impacting you, it will impact your sleep overnight. So less caffeine in the afternoon. Try not to have caffeine after midday. The other thing that I love to do when it comes to health and eating is looking at fasting. I heard a great podcast with Dr. Chatterjee and Dr. Sachin Panda, and I've put the recommendation of the book in the back, The Circadian Rhythm by Dr. Sachin Panda, and he talked about fasting and the importance of this on your health for everything. And fasting, since introducing, has just massively helped my gut microbiome, my digestion, my energy levels. It's just wonderful for so many different things. And it's also been, Dr. Sachin Panda also talks about the fact that it can really just help your longevity and reduce the risk of so many different things like diabetes and dementia and things like that. So it's a great podcast. If you listen to Dr. Chatterjee, go and listen to that, or read Dr. Sachin Panda's book. But fasting is so good for so many different things. Fasting doesn't have to mean that you're not going to eat for a day. Fasting just means that give your stomach and your digestion and your microbiome, your soldiers of health that are housed in your good gut bacteria, a rest. So they don't have to keep digesting and breaking down all that food at a time. I love a 12-hour window. So last thing you eat is at 9, have your breakfast at 9, or last thing at 8 and have your breakfast at 8, whatever's going to work for you. I like to do about 14 hours. That really works for me. A lovely rest on my tummy, and it feels really good. And if I'm having a real IBS flare up, then I'll do a little bit longer. But work with it, find out what works for you, with you, experiment. But fasting, I love it. a couple of other things that I would just say that have really helped me, being busy, working, parent, partner, etc., etc. Keep everything simple. Don't have to overcomplicate it. I don't. Really keep it really simple. I also love to batch cook, and I don't mean spending all Sunday creating loads and loads of things to put in my freezer, although you can. It can be very therapeutic. I do that often in the winter. But sometimes it's just a simple question of cooking double the night before so that I've got lunch for the next day. So double up on my quinoa, double up on my lentils, double up on my brown rice, double up on my roasted veg, double up on my veggies, and then I keep them in containers in the fridge so that the next day when I'm busy in the working day, all I have to do is pop it into a salad bowl and there it is. Pop the salmon on, so extra piece of salmon, lovely, easy. Keep it so simple. Also, snacks don't have to be fancy. You don't have to be making that really trendy bark or the protein balls or anything like that. It can be just apples, nuts, fruit, whatever you want, just whatever's in season. Keep it simple, and water if you're hungry. Another thing I love to do is really get my family involved. I always feel, oh my God, I've got to think about what I'm going to eat, and it's so stressful. But what I felt, and it was actually something that I introduced in COVID, it was to say, right, I can't think of, a menu every week. I find it really quite stressful. So I would ask everyone, what do you want to eat next week? And each person would take a meal, and they would take a meal. So they would help me create that meal plan. And also I would offer up to them if they wanted to cook, because it's so good for our children, and my teenagers know how to cook meals so that they can now look after themselves. And also my husband, he'll cook at least once a week as well. So it doesn't have to always fall on us as the woman in the house. Just because we're expected to, doesn't mean we have to, so keep it simple, ask for help. What else did I want to say? Word on bio-individuality, a word that was introduced to me in my health coaching qualification. I spent a year trying all of the different diets. I loved it. It was actually quite fun. It was during my period of healing, my year of healing. And I tried all of the different diets that they talked about. I tried the South Beach diet. I tried the Ayurvedic diet. I did the blood type diet. I went completely vegan. I did everything just to see what would happen with my body. And this is what I really understood, like this bio-individuality. We are all unique. There is no one on the planet like you. You are one of a kind. You are one unique walking chemical experiment. And whatever you do, whatever your husband does, your partner does, your kids do, your neighbor does, your mum did, they're not going to have the same reaction. So it's about you understanding you and recognizing and becoming aware of what happens to your body when you put something into it. How is your body responding? So start to track, what did you eat? How did your mood play out? Were your perimenopausal symptoms better or worse that month? Your PMT, your PMS. Start to get aware of what works for you. And a lot of, in my early days when I started health coaching, this is what I help people do. We made small tweaks, small changes. We tracked, we changed, we worked out what was working and what wasn't working. Just find out what works for you and create your own plan for you. A word on supplements. I believe that we can get the majority of our food the majority of our nutrients, our micronutrients, all of those vitamins and minerals through our food. However, so much is actually lost through travel or packaging, so many different things. You can take supplements. I take them, but I mix them up and I just have a look at what's going on in my body. I have put in your package for this Life Lab something that came out of my first business called the Heal Yourself Happy Academy. And the first step I would talk to people about was Happy Belly. And in there, I've got all of the information around supplements and why you can take them and what to use them for. So go and have a look at that. If there's any reference in there to Heal Yourself Happy, it's because I haven't yet updated it, but I really wanted to give you that. Why reinvent the wheel? It's got so much good information in that. So I'm gifting that as part of this as a bit of a bonus. But go in and have a look at that. The key ones that I love to take for the perimenopause that I have found really, really helpful, and I actually keep them in my drawer, are this vitamin B12, really great for your mood. You just spray it on your tongue, and I love a bit of vitamin D. I also love MCT oil, which someone has been recommended to me. It really helps with my bone health, my joint health, just good for skin. It's just such a good thing to take, as is collagen. Our bodies don't make as much collagen as we get older. And that again is so good, not only just for your skin and your nails, but also your joints, your well-being. I love a brand called Ancient and Brave. Don't you love that name? That's so good for the MCT oil and also the collagen supplements. But as I said, there's so many great supplements that you can take, and it's also just related to some of your symptoms. So part one is all about tracking your symptoms. This part is recognizing what you can do based on what you're experiencing. There we go. So get your food right, and you're going to be 80% there, because all of that is going to impact your mood. We've got, I could talk about this for hours, but you know, your gut health, your microbiome, what we eat and what we absorb. There's a vagus nerve that attaches from our microbiome to our brain. And so what we eat is also directly impacting the way in which we think. But it's also vice versa. The way in which we think and the level of stress that we have can also impact our gut health and our microbiome and our soldiers of health, which is why we can get irritable bowel syndrome. And something I used to struggle with so badly until I understood this, and I started to look after my mind. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in a minute, and also in HRT3. But you've got to remember that it's all connected. So in my hard reset, I really mainly focused on my health and my nutrition, because I knew that was going to have the biggest bang for my buck. And also I didn't have the energy and the wherewithal to do very much else other than really focusing on sleep and stress relief. When it came to movement, I didn't have any energy for that. But I did do some gentle walking, some gentle stretching. So you've got to work out what's right for you depending on where you are in your stage. But if you are doing a health reset as opposed to a hard reset, then I would just start to play with movement. Again, in your package, I've given you Happy Body, which is the second part and the second step of the Heal Yourself Happy Academy, and really looking at ways to celebrate your wonderful body and how you can move it. Again, you are different. You've got to find out what you love to do when it comes to exercise and movement without it triggering you, those words triggering you. Exercise is so personal, and sometimes what we used to do in our 20s and 30s is not something we can do in our 40s and 50s. You know, I used to love HIIT training and running, but now my body can't do that. I've worn out my cartilage, so I can't. So I love walking and I love going on my Peloton. Some people take up swimming. I love yoga. I love Pilates. You know, it might be time to take up something new, go back dancing, but also remember, we're moving all the time. Gardening, surfing, skiing, whatever time phase of your life, we're always running around after our children, here, there, and everywhere, tidying, cleaning. You are moving all the time. So it doesn't have to be a stressful thing for you to do. And actually, if exercising causes you more stress, then it's maybe not the thing to be focusing on. And that's why I didn't. In terms of my hard reset, I didn't want to put more stress on my body, because actually more stress was going to impact my hormones more than actually doing some exercise was. However, with that in mind, something that's really important to recognize in the perimenopausal stage, especially when we're talking about our bones. Remember the bones, and what do I say? The three B's: our beats, our bones, and our brains. Mental health, your movement is so good to contribute for your bones. So it's important to do a mix of strength, resistance, and cardio in order for your holistic health. So strength and resistance, like kind of like pushing and pulling with weights. It can be your body weight or other weights. And cardio is so good for your heart, but also I know from personal experience, so good for your mood. You know, I would say that little and often is better than just one hard hit a week. Half an hour walk a day. I love to walk my dog twice a day, so I get 2 half-hour walks. I do a Peloton 2 or 3 times a week, and I go to the gym once a week. But find out what your perfect balance is for you right now and what you can fit in. And remember, 80% is health. If you can get your 80% right, you're partway there. For your mental health, exercise is so good because it has such a great endorphin release. So it's so good for your brain. It's so good for your feel-good factor. It's also a bit meditative, so it can be that bit of a reset. I've underlined and emboldened in my notes here that do not let exercise stress you out. So the last thing you want to do in terms of your perimenopause is add and apply more stress, because that is more harmful than good. You know, Do what suits you. Find out what's working for you. Move in whatever way is possible. This isn't saying go and lie on your couch and don't do it at all. Walking, if that's what you love to do that. Stretching, yoga, anything. Also, find out when in the day works for you, when in your schedule, when over the course of the week, when in your day. I'm a morning exerciser. James is evening. My husband loves it in the evening because he finds he sleeps better. So you've just got to work out what's right for you. And that doesn't mean to say every week is going to be the same. Our cycle changes. Our mood changes through that cycle of our monthly cycle. And that was one of the things that I recognized. There was typically 1 week in the whole month where I had absolutely no energy to do anything of high intensity. So I didn't. In those moments, I just stuck to my walking and stuck to my stretching. And I made peace with that. And that's okay. No stress, no pressure. Remember, that's not what we want to do. So as I said, in my hard reset, I literally took out all the stress of my movement. I did gentle stretching every morning and I would walk, and that was it. So I want to reiterate again, 80% of your health is going to come from your food. Your physiology is going to come from nutrition, what you put. You cannot outrun a bad diet. So many people just think, I'm going to start running and that's going to be the greatest thing. No, you cannot outrun a bad diet. If you fuel yourself with McDonald's, it's just going to be doing nothing good for your inside, nothing good for your mental health. So if you're beating yourself up about the fact that you aren't running marathons or you aren't doing as much exercise, go back to food. Focus there, the most important thing you can do. As an added bonus as well, along with the step 2, the Heal Yourself Happy Body, I'm also putting in some workout videos. My personal trainer and I did some stackable videos for one of my Heal Yourself Happy programs called Lean for Life, and I've put those in there, so you can do those. There's like 10 minutes, and you can stack them as many times as you want. They're really fun. Just try them for fun, but I've put those in there as well. This is a meaty topic. Right, the next thing I really want to talk to you about is sleep and rest and the importance of that when it comes to our overall health and also perimenopause. It's so good in balancing your hormones, and it's so important in this phase to prioritize sleep and rest. And yet often it's our hormonal imbalance that can massively impact our sleep and our health. And it was for me. I had really bad unexplained insomnia. I was awake like literally all night for absolutely no reason. Had lots of loo trips, and because I was having such light sleep, I just couldn't tolerate my husband snoring. It was really hard. Maybe some of you can relate to that. So what I really focused on was when I couldn't sleep, I rested. If I couldn't find that deep sleep, I allowed myself to really rest. A few things that you've probably heard of before, but maybe it's a good time to really reset, is just reset and wind down at bedtime. Just really allow yourself to do that winding down like we did when we had children who were babies. So one of the most important things and critical things is to get off your screens at least an hour or 2 if possible. And there's a little blue light that's emitted from the screens that can trigger pituitary gland in our brain that makes us feel like we're still awake. So wear blue light cancelling glasses if you're going to do it. They're typically orange. You can get them from Amazon. But most importantly, just what you're reading, what you're seeing on your screens can often trigger the subconscious to stay awake, to be aware, whether it's a work email or whether it's something that you see on the internet that inspires something or makes you feel bad. Just come off and give yourself some lovely, nourish your mind with some great things, like watch something lovely on the telly or read a book. I love to read a book. Have some relaxation time, have a bath, read a book, light some candles, do a meditation, and let yourself wind down. Let your body know that it's time for bed. Again, circadian rhythms, so good. And I think it's Matthew Walker who did, what the name of his book? I can't remember. Sleep. It's in the notes and in the workbook if you want to know more about sleep. It's a really great book. Again, go back to nutrition. It's all connected. Watch what you're eating. Try and eat earlier because that can stop bloating or stomach discomfort or IBS overnight that can keep you awake. As I said, limit your caffeine in the afternoon. It's got a long life. It might not necessarily stop you from falling asleep at night, but it can disrupt your REM and your deep sleep and all of your sleep patterns, all of which are so important and which will regulate your hormones. Similarly with alcohol, it might make you sleep or fall asleep or relax, but actually will impact you in the middle of the night or affect your quality of sleep again. One of the things I did to stop going to the loo in the night was I just stopped drinking after 7 o'clock at night. And if you are struggling with night sweats, reduce your toxins. It's one of the biggest things that you can do, because our bodies sweat in order to detoxify. So if you keep putting toxins into your body, and if you find out what those toxins are, so sugar, gluten, dairy, alcohol, caffeine, your body is going to try and sweat them out. So if night sweats is something, have a look at the toxins that you're putting in during your day. That can potentially help. It might not help all of it, but if you're not ready to go on hormone replacement treatment, that can be the one thing that you can do to start to really try and remedy that. If you can't sleep, and if you're really struggling with insomnia, then, and like I did, I just told myself to relax. You know, I meditated, I read, I daydreamed, I just enjoyed lying in bed. If my mind was busy or it got busy, I would journal everything out. I would start to fill my mind with all the things that I was grateful for, the best bits of my day. I would daydream about my future, just really allow myself to just relax rather than worry. If it got really bad, I got up and did something else, and then I went back. I recalled another period of time that felt quite similar. I survived on 5 hours sleep for 5 years when my second son was born. And I used some of the principles then. I got help, I got support, and I took naps. And I tried not just really thought about it as this phase will pass. You know, 5 years as my baby son is kind of like five years in the perimenopause. I've been there, I've done it, I can do it, I know what I'm doing. If there is something, if this is really something that's struggling and really impacting you, I can talk and share so much more on this. Having been an insomniac for a really long time, I would love to invite you to go and watch another live lab where I go into a lot more detail on this, and it's called Wired and Tired. And I'm going to be speaking to more of that and how you can do that in the conclusion. That might be something you might want to take a note of. The fourth part of this health reset is really looking at stress, one of the biggest hormone disruptors in our lives, in modern lives today. And it's just really thinking about the fact that the stress that's coming, you know, all around us, you know, work pressure, life pressure, targets, deadlines, the news, relationships, expectations, the juggles of everything we've got on our plate, whether it's kids, work, health, social, dreams, goals, things going unexpectedly wrong. But then we've also got the stress that we put on ourselves, and the expectations and the pressures we put on ourselves, and what is expected of us as a modern day woman. You know, and our body has a real physical response to that stress that is related very much critically as part of this life lab to the perimenopause. So it's a huge, big hormonal disruptor. And if I look back, and if I'm wildly honest and share with vulnerability what was going on in 2023 for me, the first 6 months of this year was very stressful, with some things that were happening in my work life and also in my personal life with James. He had some big health scares, and we had to make some big decisions and big life decisions, and that was quite stressful. I'm a real empath, so I was taking on a lot of his stress and a lot of stress of the people around me. And I think that that's what contributed to me not feeling so great in August of this year. So it really, really disrupted my hormones there. Other things to really recognize is that, and you probably know this, you know, that the whole stress thing is a trigger to the fight or flight. And what that does in our body is this prehistoric response that triggers several different things. It triggers hormones. First of all, it's going to trigger an increase in cortisol. So this cortisol is the key factor that really starts to store a lot of our food as more fat in and around our body, so that we can use that as fuel reserves when we're fighting or fleeing from that saber-toothed tiger. You know, another thing that I'm going to read this out because it's something that I read and I want to make sure I get it right, but cortisol is so important because it has the first call on the hormone progesterone, I think I've said that right, that feeds the cascade of all of these hormones and what they fall under. Cortisol steals progesterone, leaving insufficient to support estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So cortisol disrupts the production of our female hormones. They're already out of balance, and they're going to make it even more out of balance. So reducing stress levels is certainly going to help reduce the frequency and the severity of many of those symptoms. So stress relief is so key, as well as health. I think it's probably number 2 most important thing to really focus on. Also, when our stress response is triggered, we're going to increase in adrenaline, and that's going to put a massive impact on our heart. And if we're already, if we've already read into all of this, that fluctuations in our feminine hormones are also going to impact our heart, we're putting a lot more stress on our heart, which is not what we want to do at this point in time. So important, just such an important factor, stress. I cannot emphasize this enough. Just really, really focus in on that. Stress is also going to impact our digestion. That's another thing I wanted to say as well, because our bodies are quite clever. It's, if we're fighting and if we're fleeing, we're not going to be eating. So it switches off some of the functions in our digestion. And if we're not digesting properly, we're not regulating properly, etc., etc. And you see how it's all connected here. So there's a lot we can do about this, and I'm going to focus on so much more about this in HRT3. So if this is really something that you want to look more, come and have a listen into HRT3, because I'm going to be doing a lot of the inner work, the feminine energies, the emotional resilience, and what we can do with our minds that can cause so much of this stress. But some of the things that I really wanted to share with you in this particular part is just really work out what is causing the stress. Oftentimes we know what it is, but we're ignoring it. We know that there's a problem, but we just don't have time and we're avoiding it. We know that there's something wrong with work, family relationships, our health. There's something there that's causing this stress, lack of purpose, a loneliness. We often avoid it because we fear the answers. And really, my work as a coach and a mentor is to draw that out and help you and walk with you to go back and face that, so that we can meet it head on, so that you can take away the pressure of it, so that it takes the noise away from it, the stress from it, by looking at it. We think by running from it, it's going to help, but actually all the running from it does is it exhausts us and causes us more stress, where we just need to stop, we need to turn around and have a look and find the solution. And we can find the solution. We're bright, intelligent people. We know what's wrong and we can resolve it. You know the answers, you know how to improve it. What are the conversations that you need to be had? They might be scary, but you can handle it. You've been through so much. Another hard conversation, it's going to be okay. We'll talk more about that in HRT3. Rather than blaming others, bring it back to yourself. What can you do? Stop giving away your power to others and make them resolve it. You resolve it. You know the answers, and you can probably resolve it far more quickly. I often think that stress is just a massive alarm bell that something needs to change, to look at, and we don't like change. But sometimes when we change, good things happen from those change. So have a look. And if you can't do it, get help. I love the phrase that says the brain surgeon cannot do brain surgery on himself. And a lot of this stress is around the brain and doing brain surgery. It's mindset work. It's untangling all of the things that are going on in your mind. You might not be able to see it because you think that way, and that's how you're programmed, and that's how your mind is set. And that's why coaching, mentoring, working with a coach and asking, having the right questions in the right safe setting can be so incredibly powerful. And that's my jam. That's what I love to do. So when you do this, and I've also been on the other side of it, working with coaches, when you know that there's something wrong, but you just can't untangle it or too scared to do it, working with a coach can be amazing. It's just like the pressure comes off. So I've spoken about it, I've talked about it, and now because I'm stopped running from it, I can find the answers. And when there's been deeper trauma in my life, I've got really deep therapy or counselling. So it's up to you. Ask those initial questions and then work out where you want to go next. There's also some simple things that we can do as well. That's quite serious, wasn't it? There's some simple things we can do. Take some time for yourself. How many of you do that? Do you do that? Allow yourself to take some time to do what you love, to trigger yourself back into that parasympathetic state, out of the stress. Allow yourself to break that cycle. Do something creative. Do something that brings you joy off your joy list. Go and do something that's really relaxing for you, your type of fun. Do yoga, go to a spa, have a massage, go and get some Reiki, take a nap, go for a walk, watch Ted Lasso, something that's just going to make you sit and relax, and do it without guilt or shame. Allow yourself. It's okay. It's okay. Do some intentional mindfulness, do some meditation. I've just launched weekly meditation circles. I'm going to be talking about that again later down the line, but come and learn how to meditate. Just give yourself that mental reset, that reset on off button. Give yourself a mental break. Some people find exercise incredibly stress relieving. I know that running used to be incredible for me. Used to get rid of like all of that adrenaline, get rid of that, get rid of the stress, get rid of the anger. Boxing, I love boxing. Just punch out the anger, punch out the stress. Go for a walk in nature, do something that's going to help you relieve your stress. Go and experiment, a bit like the food, go and work out what works for you. Many of my clients have stress relief and relaxation time in the I do not have time category. But it's time to put them in the I have got time and in the priority category, particularly when it comes to the perimenopause and this phase of our life. It's about planning it and prioritizing it a little bit like you would as if you were going to see the doctor, because if you don't prioritize it like that, then you will end up seeing a doctor for much bigger reasons than just the perimenopause. You'll be going there to get your sick note, to sign you off from work, to sign you off from life. Stress, overwhelm, burnout are the biggest reasons for the moment for people to be taking time off work or leaving work. It's a sad situation, but that's where we are, because they are not prioritizing or planning their mental health, their stress relief. Depression can be a very, very dark place. Trust me, I know I've been there, and it can be a really hard place when you're in it to get out if you don't know how. Now, menopause can often disguise itself as depression, and the symptom can often worsen. So it's really one thing to look out for and get help with if that's where you find yourself. It really is time to look after yourself. In this phase of your life, it's your time. I imagine you've been looking after so many people in your life up to this phase. I wrote a blog for 3 years called The Hour Sandwiches. In this period of time where you're looking after little children, when you're looking after your partners, when you're looking after your colleagues, when you're looking after your teams, when you're looking after your elderly parents, there doesn't seem to feel like there's any time for you. There is now. This is your time. This is time for you to prioritize you. Be that role model that your team are looking for. Be that role model that the younger women in your life are looking to. I wish I had had one. I wish I had had one. And I want to be that role model for so many. It is not indulgent. It is a critical part of your health and of your healing and of your longevity in your future life and how you're going to experience it. I recently heard a great phrase, and I love it. It's either 20 minutes now or it's 20 years off your life. Can you find 20 minutes every single day? A little bit like exercise. Little and often is better than just once a week or once a month. So can you replace a current habit with something else? Rather than scrolling social media or self-flagellation in your mind or procrastinating or worrying, can you do some self-caring, some stress relieving? You think you don't have time? I always think that, you know, if someone gave me an hour to do something, I would do it in the hour. If I took 10 minutes for myself of that hour, I know that I would still get whatever I needed to get done in the remaining 50 minutes. So sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away for 10 minutes, to go and meditate, to go for a walk, to go and have a conversation and laugh with a friend. Do something else, shut your eyes, and then come back. You will have so much more mental clarity and you will get it done so much quicker. Trust me, I know. So this wraps up HRT2. Sounds like HG2, doesn't it? Sounds like the high-speed train. Sometimes it feels like that. We're on a high-speed train, doesn't it? So I suppose just to wrap up this little bit here is, what are you actually going to commit to? Because I can probably say that the majority of people and women that I've spoken to and worked on this, they know all of this already. They're just not doing it. So all you need to do is commit to doing one thing, something, a little change. Are you going to do a hard reset? Can you commit to doing that for just 2 days? Do you want to do it for longer than that? Do you want to do it once a month? Or are you just going to start to really look at your health in a much different way? Can you write yourself your own prescription of nutrition? What are you going to do? Of movement, of sleep, of stress relief? maybe one thing under each of those topics and headings that you can do, that you can change. And as I said at the beginning, layer it up, little bits of salt, little bits of this, little bits of that. Just keep adding it up until you can make a bigger change. You know, use your workbooks, make some notes and commit. You have got this. This is probably going to be one of the easiest things that you are ever going to do. It's all well within your control. And yet we make it so hard. We've done harder things and you can do this. So if you want accountability on here, then really do go and head to the conclusion and the final message. And you can find which options are going to help you support your goals with your health, either while you're going through perimenopause or to help yourself before you get to that phase. Lots of love. See you in the next bit.